Alexia, how are you today?
I'm really well, thank you, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad you could join us today.
I'm thrilled to be here. This is really exciting.
Yes, definitely excited to have you. Tell our audience where you're joining us from today.
So I'm calling in from the south of France. So I escaped the UK just before COVID funfair hit the world, and to pursue my dream of living in Provence in the south. So that required quite a lot of facing of my fears and
Mhm.
pushing my own personal boundaries. But I made it, and here I am. Absolutely
Okay.
thrilled to be here.
Hey, we love having you here. But tell it, give our audience a little bit, a little bit of background and tell us more about Alexia and what led you on this journey.
So I guess my story really starts in the work that I do today. It started when I was a pregnant business coach, and I my background is marketing, and I left all that to pursue something a little bit more fulfilling. And I was a business coach, and then I fell pregnant, and then my world fell apart. And basically, when the minute I saw that pregnancy test, I just felt like a pit of dread come over me, and I could not explain it. I just suddenly felt like this was horrific. And about a few weeks later, I think I lost the baby quite early at 7 weeks. And when I found out that I lost the baby, yes, I felt incredible loss, but I also felt huge relief. And at that point, I was like, whoa, what the hell is that? Like, how is it possible for a woman to feel relief at a miscarriage? That's not normal. And so this kind of really sent me on a journey of trying to sort out the hot mess that was my head, because clearly there was a lot of mess going on in there, right? And I'd not long lost my mum very suddenly to cancer, so I was reeling with grief. I was battling depression and severe anxiety. So I was a hot mess. Let's not beat around the bush. But I didn't realize that this feeling that came over me was anything that I just thought it was me being a hot mess. And so I really focused the next year on addressing my anxiety and getting out of the pit of depression that I was in. And so when I was pregnant a year later, I didn't get the same pit of dread feeling, but I still had that feeling of, this is terrifying. The only way I'm going to be able to get through this is if you knock me out cold, give me all the drugs, and like just give me a C-section. Like, I don't want to be present for that. I want it to be happening without my awareness. Um, but I decided that obviously the birth was a looming deadline that I could not escape from. And so I decided that I would try and sort this out myself. And so as a coach, I'd been learning some mindset, some therapeutic techniques. I've been learning and all of that. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and get rid of this fear myself. I'm going to try and do this. Because I went to hypnobirthing, I went to all the usual places that you go to in pregnancy when you're feeling scared. And none of those things were really making a jot of difference. So I turned to what I knew, and I came up with a DIY method. Well, it had to be DIY because I did it myself, to get rid of my phobia. And I did that in my second trimester. And then at some point, in month 7, and I decided that I'm going to ditch my plan for a C-section and have a home birth. And so I had a home birth and ended up having an incredible 8-hour home birth that was pain-free. And I was like, whoa, well, I did it. But I didn't really know deep down whether my work, whether my healing, whether the work that I'd done on myself had worked, because a lot of women have great births. And so maybe I was just a fluke, maybe it was fine. And it wasn't anything that I did. I just didn't know. The only way I was ever going to know that was by getting pregnant again. So obviously that's like a big ask, isn't it?
It
So
is.
so that rolled around 4 years later, and I was able to then ask myself, well, the fears that you had, are they still gone? Because let me just paint a picture for you. When I was pregnant, I could not look at a pregnancy book. I could not look at diagrams of birth canals without having a panic attack. I could not watch my sister-in-law stroke her belly, because that made me want to. I was just like, stop doing that. That's like an alien inside you. Like, that just brought back images of X-Files and aliens that are crawling under the skin. That was like a parasite. Like, I was repulsed by the idea of seeing a baby move in someone's tummy. The idea that that would happen to me was just revolting.
Mm-hmm.
So this wasn't just a little bit of apprehension about birth. This was, I could not look at my birth books because they were terrifying. Just the diagram. So this is kind of quite typical for tocophobia as it's known, which I didn't know that I had that at the time, but the extreme fear of birth and pregnancy is called tocophobia.
Right.
And so, and that was something I was able to heal of myself. So I was able to test it again 4 years later with my baby number 2. And yes, none of the fears were there still. And I had new ones this time, so I was an older mum and considered to be geriatric in the UK, and therefore, walking stick at the ready before giving birth. And I was able to have another incredible home birth. This time, I really wanted to kind of at least achieve what I had the first time, which was an incredible experience. And I was not prepared for what I had the second time, which was a euphoric birth experience.
Right.
And my baby was born still in the amniotic sac, which is quite a very rare thing to happen. So, so that experience really taught me that, well, hey, your stuff works, Lex. That technique that you came up with, that works. And weirdly, now I'm like, my baby's 2 weeks old, and I'm breastfeeding, and I'm getting emails from women I've never heard of, I don't know, asking me how I did it. How did I go from being fearful to fearless twice? And I was like, how do they know? Who told them? I have no idea how they knew.
Yeah.
But I did start getting quite a lot of emails from women that I didn't know. And some of them were pregnant. And so they were really kind of had pressing needs. So I started to kind of explain how I had done this, which did involve quite a lot of information around unpacking the fear and the phobia, because it's quite a complex condition. If you say, well, how do you get rid of anxiety? That's not like a one paragraph email, right? It required me to kind of explain quite a bit about my approach, and then also the technique, which also required a little bit of explanation. So these emails were quite significant. And I'm, new mama, not getting all the sleep in the world. And so I remember saying to myself, if you get another one of these emails, Lex, just write the book. Just write a book. And sure enough, I got another email. And so this is the book that I ended up writing.
Okay.
And so I wrote that. I just started writing it in, do you see that okay?
I was like, what is the name? Okay, for your birthday. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I ended up writing that in 3 months. It just came out, 108,000 words. And I was like, oh my God, what are you going to do now? You're going to like publish it, right?
Gotcha.
And I was a business coach with a podcast already called The Head Trash Show, which was doing very, very well.
Right.
So I was like, well, I know, but I was mainly working with business owners, male business owners. So I thought, well, this is like ridiculous. You've got a woman, like a pregnancy book now in draft form, and you work with male business owners. This is my marketing background is like, this just doesn't add up,
Right.
So I thought, well, I'll as a little maternity project, I'll just launch a podcast to share these ideas, just to get them out there very quickly, because these women that had emailed me were pregnant and they needed the info, and I didn't have time to go through the whole book publishing, editing, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I could record it, at least recording a podcast. You don't have video. Well, we didn't back then because it was in 2015.
Right.
And well, we did. I chose not to, because obviously being a new mum, I was breastfeeding during most of my episodes. And I needed to have a new baby. And so I got the podcast out, and it just went nuts. This podcast just took me completely by surprise. And it's called the Fear-Free Childbirth Podcast. And it appears that I just hit a vein. Like, it appears that women, this is a thing that women really have. They really do experience fear around birth. And suddenly that's exactly what they were searching for. Like the name of my podcast, they wanted a fear-free childbirth. And that's why they kept finding my work.
Right.
And it just went insane overnight. And so I had to kind of park my business coaching for a bit and honor this work that was now coming through me. Because it felt like a calling now that I really, these women needed me more than these male business owners. I thought they're going to be fine, these guys. They can go find someone else.
Right.
These women need, because obviously I found a way of healing phobia on my own. Because if you go and see your doctor, your midwife, your OBGYN, and you tell them you have this, a lot of them don't know what it is. They don't know it's got a name. Or they'll just say, well, just get a C-section, honey, suck it up. Just hold on tight and just get out the other end. There isn't actually any treatment for it that is known to be effective consistently. So so here I managed to stumble upon something that works. And now since then I've been working with women, helping them to get over their tocophobia. And now I can typically help them get over it in about a month, which means they can tackle it during their pregnancy. But as a result of doing this work, a lot of these women, they just wanted to know how to do it. They wanted to, you know, so then my technique, I then created online materials. I developed an online training program. So I now train doulas and midwives and therapists and coaches in the method. I train women to use it DIY, so that I create lots of things for them to be able to use it on themselves. So they basically, I mean, if you buy the book, you can use the technique. And I also, like a lot of my my audience that were following me before I wrote the book, my head trash audience, were like, well, you said you were going to write a book for us, because I was going to write a book for the business seed for the head trash tribe. And then I went, you know, off the reservation and wrote a pregnancy book. And they're like, well, I'm not pregnant. I don't want that. So I had to go back and like write the head trash book, which is this one. So it's Clear Your Head Trash. So that's like, so if you want to learn how to use head trash clearance, which is the technique that I developed, then you can just do it in the book, right? It just explains it in the book. And you can just clear a fear, clear anxiety, just clear one piece of head trash in about 15 to 20 minutes, half an hour. And you can learn how to do it straight in the book. And so I'm all about self-healing and really helping people to be empowered with their emotional well-being, their mental health, so that they can feel great, live the life they dream and desire of, run the business they desire. You know, our head trash gets in the way of our business, as I've worked a lot with business owners, but I've also, with these women that suffer from tocophobia, a lot of them also have anxiety, depression, OCD. So I've worked a lot with those conditions as well, as a result of the work that I've done. And it's an incredibly potent methodology that is getting incredible results very, very fast. And even because I'm all about the self-healing as well, obviously it's great to work with a professional, but not everybody has that kind of budget. Not, you know, a lot of people are wrestling with mental health crises, especially at the moment with what we've all been living through, you know, the collective trauma that, I mean, there's a lot, right, that we're carrying as humanity. So if people shouldn't be denied access to something that can help them to shift how they feel, only if they can afford it, right? So that's why I'm really, really passionate about creating very low cost tools and techniques and resources for people to be able to access bite size or whatever, so that they can do that healing themselves. So so I've got a membership that's very low price, and there's a lady that joined my membership. She had tocophobia. She said, I can't leave the house. I'm in bed all day crying. I just can't, you know, I've got depression. I'm in the fetal position. That's how I spend my days. I can't function, and I can't afford to work with you. What can I do? And I said, well, actually, my membership's probably the best route, and it's only $29 a month, so it's really like super affordable, right? And then 2 months later, she cancels, and I was like, oh my god, I probably should do a better job at that membership. And I was like, how's it going? You know, love to get your feedback. She's like, oh my god, amazing! You changed my life. Like, we're now trying for a baby. My depression's gone. My tocophobia's gone. And I was like, oh my god, like, what did you do? Like, I know that this stuff works, but I still get goosebumps when I hear stories like that. And I was like, well, how did you do that? Because, you know, when people are suffering from depression or anxiety, they find it very hard sometimes to just motivate themselves and do what needs to do. I know when I've been in my dark places, I know a lot of really great tools and things to help me. But can I remember them when I'm feeling bad? No,
Exactly.
you know, like sometimes you don't have the mental capacity to maybe reach for the things that you know are going to help you. But she's like, no, I just did one clearance every day for 2 months, just one. So that's a half an hour a day. And within 2 months, she self-healed her depression and her tocophobia all on her own. And so that's really what I'm about. And obviously, you know, the more people that can access this, imagine what kind of transformations we could bring about in the world. So yeah, I'm sorry I did sort of went on a little bit there, Tim.
That's fine. Hey, story. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear all about what you have going on. I mean, and kind of what I'm hearing is like, you know, yes, it's definitely helping women with their fears, but it's also, it can be applied to anyone. I mean, I imagine that's dealing with any type of fear at all. You know, absolutely. Because, you know, and because generally, I know with your business, I know probably, you know, I'm probably, just by listening to you, you probably got some of these ideas. You were using these things with some of your business people to get through the fears of things they dealt with in business, to translate into how to literally, what we call, you know, I'm a Reiki, and, you know, healer. And so we kind of get into the vibrations of things of that nature, kind of raise the vibrations of the mindset to get past these things.
Yeah. Well, I've worked with I had quite a few business people approach me saying, all that fear clearance stuff you're doing, does it work on businessy fears? And I was like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't care what conflict we're healing, right? What have you got? I was like, absolutely. Right. So I ended up working with a lot of female business owners. And what's been interesting is, those that are kind of wrestling with young kids, as well as running a business and being the CEO or being the one in charge, the founder, which obviously carries a lot of work-life balance and responsibility and stress and sleepless nights and all of that. So they're juggling it all, right? And what was incredible for me to see was, and I think, a lot of us that work within these areas are aware of this already, but, how these patterns that we have don't operate in silos. So, for example, she would come to me, there was one situation that she was facing, this lady. And she's like, I just can't seem to delegate effectively. I give my staff stuff to do, and they always it comes back, and then because they don't do it well, then I end up having to do it anyway, and I've wasted time briefing them, and I've wasted time looking at it and realizing they've done it wrong, and then I end up doing it myself. My to-do list is just out of control. So we worked on the conflict that was behind that behavior pattern, and we resolved that straight away. Like within one session, that was resolved. And so next week, she's telling me, it's amazing. My to-do list is it's a third the size of it before. Now they're just getting on with stuff because actually now I'm taking the time to brief them correctly because I wasn't before. And the conflict that was going on here was her conflict between wanting to be efficient and her hate of wasting time. And they were kind of fighting each other, this value conflict. And so when we healed that, she realized she was rushing the delegation task, briefing it because she didn't want to waste time on it. And she wanted to be efficient, but she wasn't doing it well enough that they understood clearly. So they came back, and then she didn't want to waste time again explaining it properly. So she did it. And, that was how it kind of fed. So that resolved itself immediately. But then she said, the thing that's really blown my mind is with my kids, because I didn't realize before, but I used to do exactly the same with them. And I was never really present with them when they brought things to me after school or after nursery. And I would never really, be present with them and sit with them to look at their artwork or do the jigsaw with them. And now I'm just being with them. And our relationship is I just feel like we're closer. And so, just seeing how when you address something like that, it's actually something that does affect you in many aspects of your life. And we don't often kind of realize the repercussions of doing really potent healing work on a pattern like that has just got repercussions everywhere. So the business stuff is really because my background's business. I'm very excited about working with business owners because I can bring a lot to that because of the work. I work very high level within business, so I can kind of work with CEOs and director level to help them really bring about very rapid change. And this particular CEO saw a ridiculous level of increase in her turnover in the time we worked together. And she said it's really to do with, before I was acting, it's like I was acting CEO, waiting for somebody else to come in and take the CEO role. And now I've realized that that's me, and I've stepped into being the CEO. She felt like she was babysitting it before, and she hadn't kind of assumed the full power of the role, and was just kind of whereas now she's like, I'm it, that's me, and I'm doing it. Yeah, exactly. So she said, you've kind of activated that power within me to just be boss mode, So it's interesting how this activation of power, whether it's in the birth space for a woman to be able to advocate for her what she wants and stand up for what she wants in the face of a male healthcare team, which can be very difficult for women to do that when they're naked. But also to do that if you're a CEO in a male-dominated industry, if you can kind of stand in your power calmly, defend your position, command the team, get people to do what you want. Those things are important no matter what situation you're in. Okay, so identifying the patterns that are at play, healing the conflicts, can create magic very quickly in those environments. And so
I'm sure. I mean, it empowered you to go from being afraid to be pregnant to I'm going to have this baby at home. I mean, speaking as a man, I mean, that's some, because I've seen these things, in the room, in the hospitals, that's, we must respect you ladies to begin with. So to take that task on at home, that was a big mindset shift.
Well, there's a lady that I've just interviewed on my podcast, and she's started following my work when I first brought it out in 2015, 2016, and she was terrified. She said she also had tocophobia, and so she went on to use head trash clearance to clear all her fears, so that she was able to have positive birth experience for herself. And then when her second baby was about a year old, she said to her husband, "You know what? I really want to be pregnant again. I loved it so much. I loved giving birth so much, but I just don't want to bring the baby home. How do you feel about surrogacy?" And so she decided to then go on to be a surrogate mother, and she's currently pregnant with surrogate baby number 2, which is just mind-blowing, to think that she was tocophobic, and now here she is having babies for the sheer fun of it, and doing that for families that can't have them for themselves. So what I'm discovering through the longevity of the work now is that, when you clear your fears as a woman like that, facing, the birth calls women to the healing table. There's a lot of, I think, men, these are fears that men have too. Men have fears of losing control, right? Because those are the biggest fears that women have around birth. That's not a female thing. That's not a birth thing. That's a human fear. Just like the fear of feeling trapped, the fear of having to make, not having no choices, making the wrong decision. These are things that we all wrestle with, right?
Exactly.
But women are forced to confront these fears because of the portal that is pregnancy. Whereas guys can kind of sail past that, quite avoid that one, because they don't really have to confront him in the same way, right?
In the same way, definitely.
Exactly. Other situations, sure, but this birth situation really does force women to kind of, they either kind of, they have to deal with that. Right?
For 9 months.
But those fears they don't just apply to birth, because they're nothing to do with birth. They're life things, losing control, being, having to hand over responsibility to somebody else or take on responsibilities as sort of adult, when you assume adulthood, these are things that you have to wrestle with. And so when they have confronted those fears and healed those conflicts, they're then able to then go on to say, look at the rest of their life and go, oh, hang on a minute. No, actually, this is what I really want to do with my life. I'm doing this job I don't like. I'm going to jack that in, and I'm going to start my business, or I'm going to go and retrain, or I'm going to go. I decided to pursue my dream life, to leave the UK and come to the south of France.
It empowers you.
Exactly. And so the birth is just the beginning, actually, for women when it comes to this fear clearance work. Because once they've done that, I had one client, and we're going through, it's week 2 after the birth or something like that, and she's like, "You know what? I think I'm going to quit my job and start my business." I'm like, "Whoa, hang on there! Stay where you are for a minute. Let's
She's ready to go.
No, I know I can do it. I can do this." I'm like,
okay,
well, hang on a minute. I think I should be put the brakes on as a coach kind of thing. But
take on the world.
Yeah, she just felt like she could do anything. And that's what this kind of, when you unlock that and you heal that within you, it creates a profound shift. And one thing that I've been doing quite recently, and you've probably heard of this, is when everybody talks about low frequency emotions and high vibe and all of that kind of thing, the work behind that is the Map of Consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins. And I only discovered that quite recently, and I don't know why I hadn't discovered it. You're familiar with it, yeah?
Well, this is my kind of what I get into, emotional energy. How people emotional energies, and I just did a podcast on my Conscious and Connected podcast where about 2 weeks ago, where we talked about this, and I literally did a video where I actually have a visual that kind of goes you from high vibration to low vibration, and kind of gives you an idea of the difference, how these work, and your habitual, because you have habitual emotions and you have the temporary, and the vibrations of how these things work with people. So this is kind of something I'm passionate about. So
brilliant, great. So because I've developed a book in the head trash book, I've developed a model. It wasn't developed then, it kind of evolved since I wrote it, but a model that's like this. I've described it as, I've called it the ladder of healing, or how much head trash have you got, how much head trash have you got to heal. And there's 5 levels that I've identified, going from conquer, which is something that's very kind of got hurt inside, very prickly on the outside, so they can hurt you without intending to. They pick up all manner of stuff that's going around, and they're very low, right on the floor. Conquer is like a chestnut. I don't know if that's the same that you have in the US. And then the next ball, if you heal your head trash, if you heal what's going on, people at this lower level, have got anxiety, depression, probably, and they, you know, they need coffee to get going in the morning, low mental energy, poor sleep, skin, and all that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So if you start healing your head trash, then you get to washing ball level. So the washing ball, and I've got one right here. It's one of those, you know, you stick them in your washing machine, and they tumble around to stop everything. Yeah. So that's a bit like a conch, but it's much smoother. They're not prickles anymore. They're much kind of, they're smoother. But as a washing ball, you keep repeating those same patterns. You're going round and round in circles. You're like, oh my God, I keep going out the same guys. Like, why do I keep attracting these guys? Why do I keep doing these stupid jobs? Like, you're stuck in these self-sabotaging patterns. And but now you're aware of it, but you can't get out. It's also quite wet and emotional as a washing ball, because now you're not numbed like you were before. So you're feeling all the feels. And so it feels like a very messy place to be. I was probably in that place when I discovered that I was pregnant for the first time. If you carry on healing, then you become the bouncy ball. So the bouncy ball is a lot more fun. Lots of colourful. People start playing with you. You can come out to play. Like, oh yeah, you come out. You can be in our gang. You know, now you're a bit more appealing. You know, you're not as depressing to be around or cheerful, but be quite unpredictable. So you can be all the funs, and suddenly you fly off the handle. You've been triggered, and they're like, "Whoa, where did that come from?" Well, what happened time? And suddenly you've reacted, and you know. So that's the bouncy ball. And I think most people are at bouncy ball level, and there's nothing wrong with being a bouncy ball. Let me get that clear. But if you carry on healing, you become a snooker ball. So a snooker ball feels a lot more weighty. It's almost solid. It's quite smooth. Kind of like older snooker balls, don't you? It's like feels good. And a snooker ball's got direction. It's going places, and people think, hey, they've got their life sorted. I'm going to go check them out because they can probably help me with my life.
Right. We call it peace level.
Yeah, they're going places, these snooker balls, but every now and then they fall in a pocket because they get caught. They've still got their own sabotage going on. But it really catches them by surprise because they thought they had their stuff together, right? And then if you carry on healing, you become the glitter ball. This is why I have a glitter ball down here on my floor. Because the glitter ball is the life and soul of the party, right? Everybody wants to be around a glitter ball. And everyone thinks it's a source of light. And actually, glitter balls in the business context make good leaders. They make good influencers. And they can bring people with them. They can get people to do what they want them to do. So in the business, you want glitter balls to be your leaders. And you want less people to be at conquer and washing ball level. You want bouncy balls and upwards, right? And so this model, I realize, is very closely aligned to Dr. David Hawkins' model. And so I decided to kind of glue them together. And I realized that I could start taking readings of my clients using his model. And all my clients now, I take their calibration of consciousness reading before and after our work. And all of them jump quite significantly. And I've even noticed that when I run group healing programs for tocophobia women, and I've noticed that those that are below 200, which is the level
lower level,
don't have the power, it feels hard. That's conquered level, right? If you're in a group and the collective consciousness of the group is over 200, then you can borrow the group energy to help you with the healing. And I've been observing that where it brings them up so that they can all get over 200. The minute they're over 200, their healing rapidly accelerates and they start shifting how they feel very quickly beyond that. Up until 200, it can be a little hard going for them. But equally, I've noticed, you know, what can bring about a biggest shift in consciousness rapidly, because I'm all about doing things fast. I want to make sure that if you want to heal, let's do this fast, because as fast you can heal, the better you're going to feel quicker. Like, why wallow in that stuff? Why stay as a conquer forever? Like, who wants to live like that? Get yourself a glitter ball status and start being like enjoying life, right? So I'm all about how can we get there quickly. So I feel like I've hacked that now, for want of a better word, and I've identified what are the things that you can heal. Spoiler alert, it's traumas, unresolved traumas, hidden wounds, that kind of stuff really accelerates that shift in consciousness when you heal that stuff.
Exactly.
So I'm now I've got metrics now for my healing, which as a business person with my background, it makes me very happy to be able to share with clients that they can verify themselves, because we know the map of consciousness, everybody can check. It's not like a secret number that only I have access to. We can all check it, right? And so now they're checking their own levels of consciousness and they're seeing that they're shifting. And that motivates them to keep going. They're like, oh my God, I've just jumped 20 in the last couple of weeks. Right, keep going. and they're really shifting and seeing a massive difference in how they're feeling, how they're looking at the world, and solving the challenges that come up in their lives, because they have a different perspective on that now that they didn't have before.
Yeah, and the thing is people don't, this is proven science. Dr. David Hawkins, that actual field is actually called a consciousness field. That he determined when he, like you said, he rated this, from highest, being at 700 down to shame being at 20. And, and that level, your example is like, I was intrigued to hear yours because I have mine, and then you have kind of the squeezy ball as it kind of gets smoother and lighter. And I'm kind of lurking off the board of kind of, and I wish I had brought the board. Something told me that I need to keep this thing on me because I'm always having to present to people how they're vibrating. And, in the middle of mine is kind of called the get by level, where it's kind of in there with desires and fears and things, but life can kind of have you vibrating from the middle ground to the high, but also with the, coupled with the kind of research they had given with the Heart Math Institute, where the electromagnetic field that comes from your heart, if people around you are emitting these positive frequencies, it affects everyone around you. So if you're affecting, say in an office space, if you're creating a space of positive environment, everyone's feeding off of this positive environment. And if the person who's the leader of this is creating this, it creates a whole new harmony within the whole, within people, they just walk into it and just feel this energy, because it's really, emitting, because it's the strongest field we have within our body.
Yeah. And it was really, when I discovered the tool, the map of consciousness, I decided to revisit my pregnancy journey through that lens. And I did, I'm a bit of a geek, I'm afraid, Tim. And what I did is I took my readings at pivotal moments, like what was my reading before I was pregnant? What was my reading when I found out? Then what was it when I had the miscarriage? And then what was it once I decided I was going to address my anxiety and depression, like before that? And then when I worked on that, then where was it when I was pregnant for the second time? And it was really, really interesting. So before I was pregnant for the first time, I mean, when I tell you I was a hot mess, I really was. I was around 170. So, and then when I dipped when I found out I was pregnant. So I dived to like 150. Then when I had the miscarriage, I bounced up to 180. So suddenly not being pregnant enabled me to raise my consciousness, because that's how much the terror and the fear was so consuming for me. And then I did my healing work that I did in that first year. And then I managed to raise my level of consciousness so that by the time I found out I was pregnant a year later, I was at 203. So I was now in courage. So the very same event, the first time when I saw that pregnancy test, I fell into a pit of despair because I was in pride or anger, right?
Right, exactly.
But this time I was at 203. I was in courage. And this time I was like, okay, now I can do this. This is still terrifying for me, but I think I can do this.
Oh, yeah.
Where I was at with that. And then the healing work that I did over that pregnancy in that second trimester took me to 305. So that when I gave birth to my baby, I was 305. And that's what she was when we were both the same level of consciousness when she was born. She had mine. And I continued with my healing work using head trash clearance. So that by the time baby number 2 came along, I was at 400. And guess where baby number 2 was born at? She was at 400. Which really speaks to how you call your baby in as a mother, as a pregnant, as a parents that are planning their kids, planning pregnancy. Souls come in, they choose their parents, so they're going to choose a vessel with a level of consciousness that suits. You're going to attract a different soul, aren't you, depending on your level of consciousness? And so it really kind of, this idea of women really doing that work, raising their consciousness before they bring in babies, is really, now I'm like, wow, this is kind of even more important than I thought it was before.
On a spiritual level.
On a spiritual level, it's got there's a whole new thing going on there that I hadn't really appreciated when I was going through that, right? But with the numbers that I'm now able to look at, and what I did is I drew a graph of my own trajectory. So I've actually got a graph showing my journey through my pregnancy. And I started having more conversations now with people about their life stories, about because I'm really interested to know, well, I've been using head trash clearance the whole time because that worked well for me and it's got me the results. So why would I not use that?
Right.
And I've trained in NLP and TFT, and I've been using emotion code. I use lots of bits and pieces. But I was really interested in what moves the needle, what works for me and what doesn't, because I don't want to spend time on things that aren't going to shift my consciousness, because healing only happens with a shift in consciousness. You can spend your days journaling and just like trying to understand your wound, but that does not heal you. Understanding doesn't actually shift your consciousness.
Right.
You just know your wound better, right? I like one of the metaphors I like to give is like, if you're getting rid of an old chair out your like, let's say your grandmother's died and now you're clearing out her house, and you think like, well, should I chuck all this stuff out? Well, you might want to know if that chair's an heirloom or if it's like worth anything. But do you want to know where the fabric's from? Do you want to know where the wheels are from? Do you want to know why they put 2 panels on the back or why they've got 3 buttons on each arm? No, we don't need all that. You just need to know, do I want to refurb it or should I just get rid? If you're going to, so same with our head trash, well, maybe I need to balance this in me. Maybe I'm too selfish and I need to balance my selfishness so that I do put myself first occasionally, but not all the time. So that's a refurb, just bring that back into balance. Or some wounds are just better out. Like that trauma, no, let's just get rid of that one. We don't need to keep that. We'll keep the wisdom, but we'll get rid of the emotional energy.
Exactly.
But we don't need to like wallow and like, turn it around and I mean, that's not serving us really. Right. So having healing is where the shift in consciousness comes, where, when you've healed, you're like, well, okay, that happened to me, but I don't care anymore. I've moved on. It's past. It's behind me.
Right. You don't relive it again.
Exactly. So this shift in consciousness for me is really telling for those on the healing journey, because you can now, for me, I'm very interested. I'm like, well, you spent 2 years in therapy. What was your reading before and what was it after? And you're like, oh, well, you moved 5 in 2 years. Was that a good use of your time and money?
Right. Maybe not. Maybe not, right?
Maybe not. Maybe it was. Maybe that was really useful and they were able to process. And, I'm not saying that it's not useful to go through and have that understanding, but let's be clear, understanding is not healing. So what is it that you're after? Is it healing? Right. Or do you just want to know that old chair inside out so that if you ask questions about it, you can answer them? Or do you just want to like have a nice looking room that you can relax in and feel at peace in? Like,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it's kind of like we say, it's like knowledge is not power, it's knowledge that's applied is power. You have to apply it.
Yeah.
So just
know. I think we just need to be honest about what are you hoping to achieve by doing X? Like some people turn to meditation for anxiety and depression. It's like, well, meditation's not healing. So you're not really using the right, meditation's got incredible things going for it that are really good for honing your intuition and really just being in that space, but it's not for healing anxiety, let's be honest. So we just need to get honest about the activities that we're doing, the spiritual practices that we're doing, the healing practices, the therapeutic practices we're doing, and just being clear on, well, why are we doing this? And what is it we hope to achieve by it? And is it actually helping me to achieve the thing? And I think using the map of consciousness is a really great way to help you to figure that out. Yeah. By taking these readings that we can all have access to, right? And everybody can verify it. It's not like a secret club that only you and I know, Tim.
Right. We're actually trying to educate people on it.
Yeah. So so I just want to invite that in honest conversation and just being upfront with people, helping them to realize, what is it that you want? Okay, well, that might be good for you. If this is what you want, then head over here. So this is I think that's an important thing for us to get clear so that we can spend our time doing the things that are going to get the results that we want in our lives, so that we can be happy and thrive,
Exactly. What is something quick that someone that's, they want to tune into the program, kind of, that you can kind of give them a little technique that they can take with them, that kind of works with some of your people?
I can give you a very quick rundown of the technique if you like. Very top line, but essentially it's a 5-step process and it's very simple. Step 1 is identify the head trash that you want to clear. So that might be your hate of dishonesty. It might be your fear of pain if you're pregnant. It could be the fact that you don't like losing control. So in either, it could be losing control. The head trash, pain could be the head trash. Dishonesty could be the head trash. Like those are the kinds. It could be a value. It could be emotion. It could be a thing, a trigger. So yeah, you identify the thing that you want to clear. And then in my book, I provide these mantras. I call them head trash clearance mantras, and there are 10 of them. And we use the law of opposites as part of the technique. And each says 5 sets of mantras, because they're in pairs, because it's all about polarity and duality. And it's all about we're creating neutrality around the thing that we're working on. So we're going to love and hate different aspects of the head trash. And there are 5 dimensions of head trash that we work on. There's the idea of something. So the idea of pain. Pain, like, and you think about pain in birth, it's the gold standard in pain, right? So people think about pain and like, oh, go to the dentist, like people can they read about pain. It's a concept. It's a thing that we can all relate to. In the context of, let's say, depression, if you're working under feeling depressed, then it'd be the thing called depression that you might read about on a blog, right? Then the second dimension is you experiencing the thing. So me experiencing pain, me being depressed. Then another dimension is other people. So other people experiencing pain. Like, what do you like watching somebody else in pain? Like, how does that affect you? Or seeing somebody else who's depressed or angry or, whatever. So this idea that other people are experiencing this thing, and whether that acts as a trigger, whether that sucks you in any way. Then you inflicting this on somebody else. So you making somebody else experience it. So maybe you're inflicting pain on them. Maybe you're making them lose control. Maybe you're making them angry. You're doing something, willing, like unknowingly or not, but because of you, they are experiencing this thing. And then the other way, which is you're experiencing something because of them. So maybe something's happening in the world. So lockdown made a lot of people feel trapped. Now, that wasn't a person. Well, you could argue it was the prime ministers or the whatever, but it was a situation that was creating that feeling of trappedness. Or it could be somebody, locked the door and didn't let you out your room. So you experiencing this thing because of other people or situations. And those are these 5 dimensions that we're working with. And so we love and hate all of those. And so that's what the mantras are. And they're in the book. So you can just kind of, with blanks in, so you just take the head trash, stick it in the blank, and then you've got your mantras. And then you repeat them to yourself using, putting your hands in a position known as a tap position, which you may be familiar with from the tap technique that was created by Tapas Fleming, which is an acupressure technique. So it just involves putting your hands. That's what the tap position looks like. Okay, it's very simple. You put it on your, you can Google it. She's got lots of videos on that. And you're plugging into all, hey?
What was the name again?
Tapas Fleming.
Tapas Fleming, okay.
So you're plugging into all the energy meridians all at once when you're holding that pose. So we just repeat the mantras while holding that pose, while really connecting to the thing that you're working on. So at the beginning, you have to ask yourself, like, how does pain really make me feel? Like, when I think about pain, now for women who think about pain in birth, one thing I'm guaranteed that they're doing is they're crossing their legs really hard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, so that's a visceral fear. They can feel it in their body. They're like, oh. Yeah. So when you're clearing, you need to be really connecting to how this shows up for you. Like, I'm not interested in, whatever happened when you were 2 or 5. How is it today affecting you?
In the present.
So you go through the mantras, you repeat them to yourself. In turn, you stick with them for about a minute each, that kind of thing. And then once you've done one round, you take the opposite of the thing that you're working on. So if it was pain, you go, well, what's the opposite of me experiencing pain? Pleasure is usually that for people. If the opposite of losing control is being in control, or that kind of idea, and then you run through the same process again. And that's why it takes you maybe 40 minutes to do a full clearance. You have to do both sides because everything's got to have balance. And we create neutrality. So it means that at the end of that process, you then feel, so when it comes to pain, you might think that at the beginning you're like, oh, pain, oh, you're all kind of like that. And at the end of it, you're like, well, obviously I don't want pain, but if it's painful, I'll deal with it, and it won't last, and I'll handle it. That idea that, okay, so what? You just reach a bit of, and next, it just doesn't, it's just, you're like, whatever. Right. And if somebody's going to be rude to me, if I lose control, well, it's okay. It's no biggie. I'll deal with it. It's not going to be actually control the illusion anyway. Who thinks we have got control, right? You reach a different your consciousness has shifted, right? So you're looking at this whole situation very differently now.
Yeah.
You're feeling very different. You're no longer triggered. Your emotions don't come up. You're calm. This is neutrality, where you can go, well, if it's painful, okay. Actually, pain, that's good to know, because that's my body working correctly. I know there's a problem. I can go and talk to somebody about it, you know? And then you also realize that actually pleasure isn't all it's cracked up to be, because pleasure can be really damaging. I mean, people kind of pursue pleasure and get into a lot of trouble. They drink, they take drugs.
It's true.
That can kill you. I mean, pleasure's not all it's cracked up to be either, right? Except we kind of think it's good. So suddenly you have a more of a balance of view on this, what pain was the baddie, pleasure was the goodie. Well, no, both have got good and bad aspects.
Exactly.
Now you have neutrality, you can see both aspects, because everything has a good and bad aspect. Just like water. Yes, it can kill you if you drown in it, but you can't live without it. Salt, too much of it will kill you, but you can't live without it. Everything's got to be in balance.
It's a universal law.
Exactly.
It's a universal law of polarity.
Exactly. So so that's the essence of the technique, which is using the law of opposites to create the opposite of polarity, which is neutrality. Does that answer your question?
Totally. You know, the thing is, it just, your approach on it, you know, is beautiful. It's, you know, because like, you know, like again, we're talking about how you changing the vibration of the person, and you literally changing their perspective by lifting the vibration with a different thought, you know, of polarity with this, you know, and it's kind of, and people don't understand that when you're doing this, you're kind of rewiring their thought process.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah.
And what's incredible to see is they're not like, after they've done clearances, you know, a lot of people, they don't realize what they've done. They don't realize they've done change work, because they're not making an effort. So I've had clients, some business clients, for example. There was one guy once, and he was like, well, I've got this really rubbish boss, and she won't, you know, she won't give me a pay rise, and she's a nightmare, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's lots of like, and he really didn't feel very confident with her, because she was kind of quite difficult manager with him. So we worked a lot in one session on how this boss situation was playing out for him. Then I saw him like a couple of weeks later, and I said, well, so what's been going on? He goes, oh no, it's great. I've got like I managed to get this promotion. I've got a pay rise, and things are going really well. I was like, oh, that's really great. That's really great. You know, that's brilliant, because that's what we were clearing last time. He's like, and he completely forgot what we worked on. And I was like, yeah, all those things you just described, that's what we worked on. And he's like, oh, like he didn't realize it took me to point out the link between the work we've done and what's happened at work.
Right.
Because as far as he was concerned, things were just going right. There was no effort. It was just, this was how he was doing it now. Because once you clear the head trash, you're literally just moving things out of the way. Now you can move forward.
Right.
It's not like you're kind of trudging through like in the deep snow. Like a lot of people with habit changing, you know, you've got like affirmations. I've got to say it to myself every day for 30 days, and it feels like an effort, and it's hard work, and it's trudging through deep snow. Whereas the minute you kind of just clear the snow, well, you can just walk along. You don't feel like making an effort. You're just having a stroll.
Right.
And that's what this feels like. There's just last week, I'm working with a lady on her tocophobia, and she's really stressed about the possibility of a new baby and what it's going to mean for their house. And she's like, I've got loads of stuff I've got to get rid of, and we haven't got room in the house for the baby. That's not a typical thing that I work on with women, but we worked on it. And so we worked on letting go, which is a very big deal when it in the context of control and surrender and you know, letting go of control. But she really kept mentioning the house. So I was like, oh, we'll throw in letting go of things in the house too, just to kind of like make sure that you've got that bit covered. And then she cancelled the following session. And so when I went on this, what was it, last week with her? She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I just had to cancel. I was just so busy. I turned the house completely upside down. I had a massive clear out. I was like, checks no. I was like, you realise we did work on letting go. Oh, yeah.
She's letting it go right now.
I know, like immediately she went out and just had a whole huge clear out of the house.
Yeah, letting it all go.
Again, it's only because I highlighted it. I said, well, that's what we worked on like days before. She's like, oh my God. So yeah, I see that a lot where people they just don't see the connection, because now that's just who they are. And there's no sense of effort or change. They're not making the effort to change because they just have changed. That's just, you know, and that's, so yeah, it takes me to kind of remind them that, yeah, we did that together. Otherwise Yeah. But I see that a lot.
It's so quick they don't even get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Y'all getting this, audience? Hold that book up again. Make sure they understand to get this book.
Yeah.
Go out and get it. I will be. Make sure that you have this book on, and it's must have clearly, because I mean, as you say, I mean, I have a background in hypnosis and several different things, and some of this stuff takes some time.
Yeah.
You know, I know all about meditation, and now for me, it's kind of worked a little bit in the past because it allowed me to just still my mind and stop the thoughts. But this doesn't work for everyone. It has to come up with something else because it just does. It's not effective for everyone.
Well, no, and I think when I really got a little bit of clarity over this recently, because I was thinking, well, why would people clear head trash? And I realized that the emotional well-being side, like the mental health, you know, when you think about anxiety, you think about depression. I was quite fixated on that for a long time. And I realized, especially working with my business clients, that it's not just about the emotional well-being. It's also about mental fitness, because the business clients come to me, they want to reduce procrastination. They want to reduce self-sabotage. They want to be better focused to work, better decision-making, better clear thinking. When they sit at their desk, they want to get on with the work. They don't want to be like distracted and oh, what was I saying?
Exactly.
None of that. They just want to be on it, and not kind of, you know. And your mental and I call that mental fitness. And you know, it's your ability to stick. You know, if you think about physical fitness, it's your ability to stick to the path, not fall over, not get blown over by the wind. Having that inner core strength to just have the strength to stay on task. And mental fitness is that. It's your ability to stay focused, have clear thinking, decisiveness, no procrastination, no self-sabotage. And head trash clearance is great for that. And it's another entry into the headspace, right? So you can actually decide on what your objective is. What do I want to do? Oh, I want to heal my anxiety and depression. Well, great. Let's go through that door. Oh, I want to stop sabotaging, and I want to be clearer thinking. Okay, well, what are the conflicts contributing to that? Let's go through the mental fitness door. That will get you results too, but guess what? When you're inside, you're still doing the same healing work. It's still healing, but we're coming at it with a different objective in mind. And then there's, do you want spiritual growth? Do you want to raise your consciousness? Okay, well, we can come in through that door too, because I've had people coming to me for that. But you set about doing the work differently because you've got a different objective in mind as a therapist. Like, I don't call myself a therapist; I call myself a head trash coach, because we work with them. I share, all my clients know how to use the technique, and they have their lists, and they're working on their lists at home. I'm doing work with them. We're working together as a team, and that's also why we're getting really rapid results, because we're getting a lot of clearance done in quite a short amount of time. And by the end of their time with me, they're really good at this technique, and they can use it for anything. On their kids, they're like, oh yeah, that's their tool for life that they can now use for themselves. So yeah, knowing what you want to achieve, sometimes that gives you the way in. Okay, I haven't got the emotional energy or the courage to deal with my anxiety, my trauma, my wounds today or right now. I'm going to focus on my self-sabotage and why I'm doing that. And doing that will help you and heal you and raise your vibration sufficiently, maybe to give you the courage to deal with your wounds and your trauma. Separately, you can go there later, right? So it gives you options to be able to navigate that, because you're still working with the inside of this, right? It depends which entrance way you want to use.
Right. But either way, you're still facing what these issues are.
Yeah, but you just, maybe some of them are a little bit more painful to confront, and others are less so. Like if I was to say to you, well, let's you know, that CEO, she had these conflicts between wasting time and wanting to be efficient. So that's not a terribly emotive issue. You know, you could probably work with somebody on that, and they're not necessarily going to kind of find that incredibly emotional, as opposed to, you know, losing control or being a victim, or you know, being bullied or things like that could bring up a lot of painful memories for them, and they might not want to kind of give that a lot of thought right now, but they're quite happy to think about how they think about wasting time. And so it means you can go in and start doing some healing work on some things that maybe don't feel as difficult for them to deal with, but actually that still carries a lot of weight in terms of consciousness, which then can support them through maybe the stuff that does feel a little bit more tricky to deal with. So I always kind of decide, yeah, when I'm faced with somebody, just see which way is the most gentle way in, because you don't want to scare anybody off on their healing journey.
Exactly.
You need to kind of bring them with you. So, and a lot of people are worried about, opening the box. They think that going into healing, especially with the wounds or the traumas, it's like shaking a bottle of Coke and you're going to open it. It's just going to create a mess everywhere.
Right.
It's like, no, you don't have to shake them. It's not like a shaken bottle of Coke. You can just like open it slowly.
Yeah, very gentle.
You can do that, and so we can go that way. Some people do want to just go in and just.
They are. They want it done.
Yeah, they want to nail it, get it, and then I don't care if I cry. And some people are uncomfortable with that level of emotion, so they want to take it a little bit slower. So having that flexibility to be able to go in the direct, the right, whatever the person wants is good. So yeah.
How can that book on Amazon? How can the audience get their hands on that book?
Yeah, that's on Amazon, and I've got the ebook from my site, same name, clearyourheadtrash.com. They can get the book either as an ebook straight from me, or they can just get it on Amazon in all the formats globally. Or in bookshops. It's also in bookshops. I don't know how well, because I've got a printer that goes into bookshops, but it depends on the bookshop ordering it. So, but Amazon is your best bet.
Well, tell us about the podcast. Tell a little bit more about that, how they can hear you on that.
Okay, so the Head Trash Show podcast is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and the usual podcast places, and the Fear Free Childbirth podcast also in all the usual places, and the Fear Free Childbirth website to just see what's going on in terms of the birth side of things, and access lots of resources and things for women that are pregnant. And then there's headtrashclearance.com for the professionals. So if you want to train in head trash clearance, then head trash clearance is like the professionals website. If you want to know more about the technique, look at the training courses, look at it from a professional standpoint as opposed to somebody who's clearing, their head trash.
Right.
Although, to be honest, all professionals need to clear their head trash as far as I'm concerned. All my training, the first part of the training involves you clearing your head trash, because I think it's important that the healers, the therapists, the people that are there holding space have cleared their own stuff, because how can they heal? How can they serve if they're wrestling with their own stuff? So
exactly.
Yeah, it's essential. I do not release the second part of the content to anybody unless they've done a minimum amount of clearance work. And I can see evidence of that. And only then do I teach them the full technique, because I need to know that they've walked the path and they've experienced those changes themselves. Because if you can navigate and unpick your own head trash, you're going to be much better equipped to be able to do that in something else quickly. So yeah, anybody that trains with me undertakes a huge amount of personal healing work as part of that journey, which I think is essential. So yeah, if those people are interested, then Head Trash Clearance is where they need to go to find out more.
Well, I'll definitely be looking more into it, because as I'm a healer, and you be always looking at ways, just looking at different techniques. This is what it's about. Anything that we can bring to help help other people heal themselves.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about, helping others to heal themselves. That's definitely something that everyone definitely needs to go check out. And I have a sports plan. I mean, I was an athlete, at one time too, and athletes actually could use this thing as well.
Oh my God, I've had people run like sports people using this.
Yeah.
People achieving their personal bests when they're running. Because, and I used to do a martial art called capoeira, and I noticed that I had a lot of fear. I didn't realize I had it. It's only when I went back after my kids and I learned that, I've been doing this, and I realized that, I don't know if you're familiar with capoeira, but there's a lot of acrobatics going on. There's a lot of handstands and, backwards somersaults and all this kind of stuff that can be a bit like, oh, I'm going to do a handstand, I'm going to land on my back, and that's going to be painful. There's a lot of actually, I had a lot of fear. And I cleared my fears around handstands and around kind of landing on my backside and looking like an idiot in front of everybody. And oh my God, my game improved. I was like, this is insane. I need to do this in the sports arena. And people getting personal best when they're running. I was like, I'd love to partner with sports coaches, because I think the results you could get in sport with this would be phenomenal. But but it's just me at the moment, so I have to kind of stay focused. But yeah, any sports coaches out there, do get in touch if you're interested in collaborating.
It could definitely be utilized. I mean, because that's something I've, the mental side of training with my athletes, a lot of times, I've experienced it in the past, and the athletes that do it now, they they have a lot of things going on. You got social media, you got all kinds of going on, and clearly there's a lot of head trash.
Yeah.
So, and it's something, a technique that could be implemented. Sounds like, along with the person working with you, but it can kind of become effective rather fast because you get them to address it. So yeah, I'll definitely be looking into it because I can see several ways it could be, an additional tool that could be used.
Yeah. Especially, I found in the business, what I think would be useful in the sports context is because people are going for results like the medal or the first position, whatever it is.
Right.
One thing I found a lot in the business world is these goals that people have for themselves, whether it's a 10K month, the $1 million year, that whatever it is, these kind of numbers that carry a lot of emotional weight in the way that a gold medal will, or a top of the Premier League, or whatever it is. These ideas carry a lot of emotional association for people. And a lot of people that fear their goals, even though they really want them, there's a part of them that fear their goals too, because what will that mean? A lot of people, when I've worked with fear over failure and success, we all assume that we've got a fear of failure. But actually, because I work with opposites, then we get to do success after that. And they're like, oh my goodness, I realized that actually success is what I fear the most. And that's why they've been sabotaging. And my goodness, you're going to see a lot of that in sport, because what's that going to mean if they win? And the attention, the press, even though some of these things might be desirable, they could also be blocking that on a subconscious level. So working in a goal-based fashion is very interesting. Can really get rid of all the blocks that might be between you and the goal that you've got in mind, because there's a lot. When I do when I work in a goal-based way with the process, we get rid of all the blocks between somebody and their goal, and it's staggering. And I would say, on average, this is average, on any type of goal that gets brought to my session, the typical amount of blocks between you and your goal stand between 30 and 40 blocks. They're subconscious. That you don't even know you've got them.
Underlying beliefs.
And they're all, that you don't even know is getting in your way. It's insane. And when we clear them, sometimes it might take us, a good couple of hours to clear that. But we can get rid of it in that kind of time frame, because it's all subconscious. They're not even aware they have them. So you can imagine what's going on in sports. How that would probably be a lot more than that, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, so most definitely.
I think you could get incredible results in sport with this.
Yeah, I will definitely be looking into it, to add, because I can see the benefit of it all. It's definitely something that, from approach of just kind of just calming the mind as far as getting the stuff out, because that's generally what you're trying to do, get them to get focused and kind of be in the moment.
Exactly.
It's
taking that penalty shoot, taking that penalty shot, and being able to stay calm in that moment.
Exactly.
That's what you want to be able to do, is to be calm and to be able to ignore everything else. There's one of my clients, she's a rock climber, and she went back into competition recently, and she used we're doing her tocophobia work, but she decided to just use it on the competition work. And she went much further in the competition that she'd ever been, and she realized that she was able to just completely block out the crowd and just be focused on where to put her hands. Whereas before, she had the crowd was like distracting her. Whereas this time she was in her own mental bubble, and it was just her and her hands in the rock. And
we call it getting in the zone.
Exactly. And she said, I've never been in the zone like that before. So so that was really I'm absolutely confident that it can be used brilliantly in sport. Hold on a minute. I'm still on. No. Sorry.
Parenting is always a job. I remember how it was. Mine's grown now.
So in sport it'll just be brilliant, I think. Really good.
Well, I definitely plan to get a copy of the book and let you continue to school me along the way with that. Definitely.
I'd love to have you, Tim. We're opening up a training just at the moment. Actually, there's an enrollment at the moment that's just opened. We're going to be kicking off classes in November. So if you did want to join in the latest cohort, then you can join in. Love to have you.
I'd look into it, most definitely. Well, tell our audience anything else you'd like to add, and how they can, any more content information you'd like to add, or
Well, if you're interested in training it, you go to headtrashclearance.com. You can come and find me on Twitter, on Facebook. The podcast, of course, the same name as the book, the Head Trash. Well, if you just look Alexia Head Trash, you will find me. That's why I put that as my name today, because you're going to track down whatever it is that you want to use. wherever you want to find me. And the thing I just want to leave with people is that you don't need, like, when you can be overwhelmed with your head trash and your fears and your anxieties and your stresses, you can just put aside 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, maybe not every day, maybe every other day, to just clear something. And you will start noticing shifts very, very quickly. The point that even within a week, you'll start noticing some differences. And that can then motivate you to keep going. Because I think, sometimes when you try things, you're like, oh, is this working? Am I getting anywhere? But actually, half an hour a day, that's not that much. That lady that had depression, she did one clearance every day. And within 2 months, she healed her depression. That's, you don't have to go anywhere. You can just sit at home. And there is a short emergency version for these emergency situations. I ended up using this process during labor, when fears came up in the middle of labor, and I was using it. So I told the midwife, I said, if you see me doing this, leave me a note.
There it is. Yeah.
And yeah, I had a fear come up just when baby's head was crowning, and I realized I had a fear of the pain of the ring of fire. That might mean something to you, it might not. And I realized that was making me hold, like, not push the baby out fully. So in between contractions, which is probably a maximum of 3 minutes, I cleared that fear and out she came. So there is a short, use it very quickly if you have to get rid of whatever's the mental thing. So yeah, just make a commitment to yourself to just clear one thing every day, and you will start noticing difference very, very quickly. And that can propel you and motivate you to keep going, and it doesn't mean that you've got, like, I'm still clearing my stuff, I'm still finding more to clear. But you know what? The more you clear, the more you push new boundaries, the more you uncover new fears, the more you push the envelope in your own life and do new things. So I'm happy to be healing new stuff, because it means I'm evolving and growing, and that's what I'm here to do. So share my learnings with those that want to follow a similar path. So
share love and light.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, we definitely enjoy having you on, and we are, sometime in the future, we'll check back in with you and see what's going on with you.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. I'd love to come back, Tim. Love to come back.
Well, we'll conclude this episode. We're glad to have you on, and we'll join you all next week with another episode of the Energy Healing Network, bringing love and light to you all and healing the world.